forward with racial equity updates in Minnesota adult ABE. My name is Addie Wolbaum. I am the assistant for this grant. Simu Oleski, she is the grantee. She's in this call, but oh, there she is. She's turning her camera on. She's in the car right now, so she'll just get to listen to her assistant talk. But yeah, we're with Southwest Adult Basic Education. We had this grant for the first round and we were awarded it for the second round. So we're very excited to be able to take this project further in Minnesota Adult Basic Education. I see a lot of new names and I see a lot of familiar names, so that's an exciting mix. For today's agenda, it's a quick 45-minute session, so we will be able to touch on a couple things. We're going to talk about what this next grant round is going to look like, what goals there are, and the activities that are included in those goals. We'll get to see some highlights from our adult learner survey that we dispersed and analyzed back in 2022 as part of the first grant round. And I'll share a little bit about a new community of practice that we're putting together. And I hope to have some time for questions at the end. So, well, that'll be our goal. So like I said, moving forward, with our round two, round one consisted of, we needed to do a data analysis. That was the first goal of the grant, was to conduct some sort of research to kind of get an understanding of what equity efforts looked like within ABE, just kind of get like the status of Minnesota adult ed. So in those 3 years, we created 4 different surveys. You could say. We had one for administrators. We collected 123 responses from them. We collected, for administrators, we collected 67 responses. For our educator survey, we collected 123. For our statewide adult learner survey, we collected 441. And then we did a separate survey for students residing in the Department of Corrections, in which we collected, I believe it is 374. So the first round of the grant, we collected a whole lot of data, we analyzed it, and the next steps are to figure out what can we do with this data, what does this tell us, and how can we move forward with it. So what we're trying to do is we're going to be putting together a community of practice, a group that will have maybe 9 to maybe 11 individuals to help us brainstorm and move the state forward. So this is kind of something we're wanting to advertise today. I'll be sharing the application at the end of the session. You will receive a little bit of training in regards to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And then you will be helping us reviewing all of the data we've collected and help come up with different tools and resources and practices that we can share to local consortiums and sites, but also use them at the state level. And then we're going to be working on making more recommendations to the state, creating a framework for everyone to follow, and really taking charge of this initiative. So we're really excited to be really putting more work into this. Another huge goal of this round 2 is getting more student engagement, more student leadership. So we're trying to find ways to do that. And one way that we're really looking forward to is hosting focus groups. We want to have probably like a handful of them representing different regions of the state to get more information from these students behind the survey questions that we asked. We know that a survey can only tell us so much, and we understand with potential language barriers when students were taking our survey that they might have a lot more to say that the survey couldn't really capture. So we want to host more focus groups to really understand our students more. And then, of course, lots of coordination with the state PD team and dispersing resources so that everyone can be equipped to lead equity efforts at their sites. So the main reason I wanted everyone to join us today is to hear about our learner survey that we conducted back in 2022. It is a long project that we're finally able to start sharing, and we're very proud of the work. It took a lot of hands were involved, and we're really proud of where it's come. So when we were creating this survey, we didn't really know where to start. In the beginning of the grant, I did a lot of research to try to find examples from other states, other adult basic education systems, to see if they have done anything in regards to equity work or racial equity work. And there just wasn't much out there. So we kind of had to do all of this from scratch, and it took a lot of brain power. But we have in the past 3 years, we had two advisory groups that we were working with. One was for ABE staff and ABE partners, and then another one was for our adult learners. And through those monthly meetings, they were basically focus groups. We talked about what your ABE program looks like, where are some problem areas that you see, what are some areas that you think we could touch on in this survey. And through all of those conversations, these are the sections that we came up with for the survey. We wanted to touch on kind of all the areas within ABE and try to get an understanding of what it's like being an ABE student and what their journey can look like. So section A is starting my ABE journey. Section B is about supporting their ABE journey, so resources and accommodations. Section C is about what they're learning. The content is actually we're asking about here. Section D is how they're learning. Section E is relating to ABE staff and classmates, and is a demographic section, and then another section for additional feedback. When we were creating this survey, we understood that we couldn't have it be too excessively long. We couldn't have it be too intense, because we all know what it's like to take a survey that we don't really want to do. We want to get it done, and we don't want it to be too much. So we really tried to make it as digestible as we could. So while we were creating the survey, like I said, we collaborated with our two advisory groups to develop those topics and questions. A big barrier that we faced was translating. How can we do an equity survey and make sure that we can capture everyone's voices? And sadly, the answer was that we did not have the resources to translate this pretty lengthy survey. So instead, what we tried to do to counter that was we went through every single question with both of our advisory groups. So we spent, I'd say, probably 3 or 4 meetings, an hour and a half meetings, going through each question and just saying, how can we make this question as easy as it can be? We asked our learners to go through our questions, and if they had any comments on how to make it easier, we listened to them and we changed the questions, we changed some of the words we used to try to make it as easy as possible. But still, looking back, we know that's not fully fixing the problem at hand. So the survey was created in spring 2022. We sent the survey to consortium managers, and we requested that they share it with their educators and staff, and then share it with their students. We know that this in itself is kind of a barrier, because if a manager missed the email, they didn't get it sent on, or if they just personally didn't want to send it on, it didn't get sent on, and that's just what it was. So we collected 441, and we were happy with that, and we recognize there's probably some better routes we could have taken to get a lot more feedback. And again, this is the first of its kind too. So teachers or managers, they may have seen this and not really knew what it was, so they might not have thought it was applicable to them. These are all things that we've been thinking on, reflecting on these past 3 years. So once we collected all the surveys back, we did all the surveys on a Google form, by the way, so everything was digital. This was just the easiest way for us with our small team. Our team for the first year, it was just myself, and then we have a consultant, so a data consultant, Dr. Rose Chu. So a very small group, and we just had to do what could work for us. So we got those 441 results back, and we had to analyze the data. Now, this is something that was completely new to me. I learned a lot through analyzing the administrator and educator survey with Rose. She is an expert in data. I think a lot of you might know her from her work in education. She is a genius in this. So she kind of taught me how to analyze data. She taught me how to create pivot tables. She taught me how to look for racial disparities. So while working with her, I learned a lot, and me and her, we both went through the data and we analyzed it separately, we analyzed it together, and through this, we came up with final findings. So throughout the survey, we are looking for the main thing, not one of the main things, but one thing we're looking for are any disparities, any inequities in the data between the different races of respondents. So this is a racial equity survey. So we wanted to see if there were differences in how different races of students answered the questions for any reasons. For some of these, we don't know the answers to, but we wanted to see if there were any disparities between students and how they answer these questions. So Wendy, you're managing the chat, right? So you'll let me know if anything pops up?
Yes, there
Okay.
has been a few things.
Okay.
One said, "This is amazing work. I was going to ask about what other states do too, but you said there was not a lot of information." I guess this is for ABE and I'm in DOC, so just wondering if other states do this work. Chelsea commented DOC was a major part of this project.
Yes,
Incarcerated
so
students met monthly. Yep.
Yep, so we did make sure to include students and educators and staff within the Department of Corrections because they are, of course, a part of Minnesota Adult Basic Education. We did a totally separate survey for students within the Department of Corrections. Well, sorry, no, it's the same survey, same questions. A few were omitted due to applicability of them residing in the DOC, but that's going to be analyzed completely separately because we know the conditions are very different. So we wouldn't want to combine those two different groups of data. We're still finalizing that side of the learner survey. So getting into some of our findings, and again, this is quick with our time limit that we have. So of the 441 respondents that we had, 70% of them were female and 27% male. We did make sure that this survey was inclusive of all gender identities. So we did have other options besides just male, female, as you would see on other surveys, to be inclusive of everybody. But those numbers were just too small to report on. 83% speak a language other than English. That wasn't very surprising. Very few identify as part of the LGBTQ community, and very few report having a disability that impacts their ability to learn, whether it's physical or mental. We had a lot of questions on why we collected this data. We collected demographics for our educators and our administrator survey as well. And there is always an option for someone to select that they prefer not to answer. We never want to force someone to answer a question about their identity. But what we were doing is we wanted to see how well our administrators, our educators, how well they reflect our learners. And through collecting some more of these demographics, we can see that there's quite a bit of difference. We know that majority of our students speak another language, and we know that not a majority of our educators speak another language. So we see those differences. We're aware of them. We just wanted to take note. So getting into the data, there's all this, we're going to go each section at a time and starting with the raw data. So section A, it's about starting their ABE journey. What was it like getting enrolled into their program? So question 1, it was easy for me to find information on ABE classes and programs. About 77% said yes, so that's pretty good. For 2, when starting my ABE program, the steps to complete my goals were fully explained. Here we have 82% said yes, so again, that's pretty great. 3, I started in the ABE program in class that matches my skill, 83%. And 4, I have help planning for what to do after completing my ABE program, 71%. So these are pretty decent numbers. They're pretty high, but you see questions 1 and 4 around that 77, that 71%. There's a little bit of room for improvement there. But overall in this section, a 77% average of the yes responses show that students do feel pretty supported in their ABE journey. There is room for improvement for question 4 about what to do after their program, as well as finding information for the start. So being placed, students feel happy with how they're placed in their program and their classes, but they might need more help for what to do afterwards and just finding information in the first place. So in each of these sections, you'll see I do a note whether there were significant racial and ethnic disparities present. And throughout most of the survey, we were very pleased that there were not many racial or ethnic disparities. They were, I think, just 2, I think I'm going to point out. So that was very good. We're not seeing a big difference in that, but we are finding these other things where there can be room for improvement within the program. So some wonderings out of these findings are, how are we spreading awareness of the available programs? How are we advertising ABE, and how are we making sure that the learners are equipped with what to do next with their education? We also made up some themes for each section. Each section, the noticing and wonderings and the themes, they're going to kind of vary in length, just depending on what we got out of the survey. In some sections, we got a little more out of it compared to others. So overall, starting their ABE journey, throughout this entire survey, we see just overwhelming gratitude. Everyone is so grateful for their experience in ABE. They're so grateful for their educators and for their classmates that have helped them along this journey. So we're overwhelmed with all this positivity, and we're trying to kind of make meaning from some things that might not be said because they're so covered with that positivity. But overall, very positive learning experience. They're they feel supported in starting their journey. They appreciate the flexibility of their ABE class schedules, and some suggestions for improvement, more flexibility in class schedule regarding, conflicts with work or childcare, other things like that. But overall, starting their ABE journey, it's a very successful start. So section B is all about supporting students' journeys. I should also note that each of these sections are very, very similar to what we asked in the educator and the administrator survey. So in the educator and administrator survey, we do have a section asking about resources and accommodations, if they are equipped and prepared to if they're equipped with these resources and accommodations and aware of all these for students. So we wanted to have some similarities across all of our surveys to tie things together from all the different perspectives of ABE. So for question 1, my ABE school gives me the materials I need to complete my schoolwork. 75% say yes, so that's okay. For 2, I have reliable and regular internet access outside of my school. That's 80%, that's good. 3, I'm aware of resources and accommodations to support my learning needs. So sign language or different ways of taking a test. And this is where we kind of see some confusion maybe. You see 62% said strong yes, and 18% said kind of, and about 14% said I don't know. So we had all these different answer questions to kind of see, we wanted to see how students would answer this, because if they say, I don't know, do they not know what resources and accommodations are? Are they not aware of what that even means? What level of awareness do the students have of these resources and accommodations? So you see there's kind of some shakiness there. We would like to see that yes, much, much higher. 4, kind of a similar question. I'm aware of resources and accommodations to support my mental health needs. So like mental breaks, headphones, counselors, other things like that. And similar as the previous questions, about 60% said yes. That's kind of, a lot of room for improvement there. About 15% said kind of, about 14 said I don't know, and about 13 said no. So how can we make students more aware of resources and accommodations? Do they know that these exist? Do they know what the extent of these resources and accommodations could be? Number 5, this is a really kind of exciting point, I think. My ABE school is sensitive and flexible to meet my cultural or religious practices and needs. So prayer time, major holidays. 85.5% said yes, and 10% said sometimes. So that's about 95% yes and sometimes. That's a really great response. We should be very proud of that. So for overall resources and accommodations, supporting learners' ABE journey, the 70% positive yes response showed that they feel supported, but there's still that room for improvement, especially questions 3 and 4 about their awareness of resources and accommodations. There were no significant racial and ethnic disparities present, so that's good. So we think, how can we make the learners more aware of resources and accommodations? And then think about what benefits could come from learners having access to such resources. This could maybe greatly improve their experience in adult basic education, maybe make it easier and quicker. Are ABE educators fully equipped with resources and accommodations for their learners? How do resources and accommodations vary site to site, classroom to classroom? So those last 2 points, those are kind of similar wonderings that we had from our educator survey and our administrator survey. We saw that a lot of educators and administrators felt very confident in their ability and awareness of resources and accommodations. But when asked to kind of go more in depth on some of those questions, we were seeing more surface level answers and kind of just some basic responses. We weren't seeing a full scope of resources and accommodations offered. So we think, how can we improve that for everybody, for the administrators and the educators, make them more equipped, more confident in having these tools to pass them on to their learners? So some themes: accessibility and flexibility. Again, just overwhelming positivity. They do appreciate the different learning styles that are reflected in the classroom, that classrooms are adaptive to working with students of different levels. That was mentioned a lot, how some students may need more help, but then that doesn't really interrupt the classroom that much. There's a very supportive environment. Students are happy with the resources they're providing, but we think, are they happy because that's just what they have, or do they know that there can be more resources, there can be more accommodations? So are they just so overwhelmed with their gratitude of ABE that they just accept what it's like? Are we aware that there can be improvements to such a great program? Another theme, very happy about inclusive practices, like I said, the religious holidays and respecting cultures and diverse backgrounds. A few challenges and needs mentioned about financial restraints in regard to internet access, and more accommodations, and a specific mention about Ramadan and scheduling adjustments to make that more accessible for students. So overall, they feel very supportive, but is there more that we can do to support them? I'm going to check the chat. See if there's any good questions. Internet and device device access are definitely challenges. Yes. Yes, Wendy, sharing Panda. That's awesome. So we know there's a lot of resources and accommodations out there, but how are we sharing them with other educators in the field? Are we collaborating with others to see what they're doing? There's so much more that we can be doing, and I'm sure that a lot of us are already doing, to improve the learning experience for learners. So section C is about what they're learning, the content of what they're learning. This is a very important section, and we are working with our advisory groups to create the survey. This was one of the most important. So I'm learning useful life skills and strategies in my courses, such as managing money, understanding taxes, being involved in my community. 60% say yes, and 15% say no. There's that 25% kind of, but that 60% yes, that could be a lot stronger. I'm learning useful skills and strategies in my ABE courses to be successful in a career, such as technology and computer skills, typing, how to apply for a job. Again, that 67% yes could be a lot stronger. 3, I see many cultures, religions, races, and backgrounds in what I'm learning. So here we wanted to ask, is what they're consuming, does it reflect them? Are the materials representative of them and their cultures? And 4, I see myself, my culture, and my background in what I am learning. Somehow I have a duplicate there. But 65% said yes. So again, lots of room for improvement there. 5, we wanted to see the differences in how students have to purchase their materials. And we see that just about 60% say they don't have to buy their materials, but then there are those about 24% who always say they have to buy their materials. For 6, about 73% say that it was not difficult to purchase their materials if they had to. And then number 7, this is a really great question overall. I'm happy with what I'm learning and the materials I'm using. 90% said yes, and about 8% said kind of. So basically everyone is pretty pleased with what they're learning and their materials. So for those first 4 questions, there was a 66% average yes response, which shows that there does need to be more emphasis on the context of the learning materials and goals. And it seems kind of confusing because that last point I just made about how that 90% are happy with what they're learning, they straight out said yes, they're happy, they're pleased, but there can be improvements made in regards to what they're actually learning to prepare them for a career or utilizing real life skills, stuff like that. Now, this is one of the few times that we saw a racial disparity stick out, and we don't really have a explanation for it, but it's just something that we found. So from this, we found that Black and African American learners disproportionately report having to buy their own course materials more often, and they have difficulty purchasing these materials more often. So there's a disparity there. We're not sure the answer, but it's important to point out, and that's something that we'll be looking into more. But again, it's a bright spot that even though these first 4 questions were around that 60 to 70% range, overall learners are happy with what they're learning. So what conditions have created these conflicting findings from questions 1 through 4 and 7? Are they so grateful that they simply accept what they're learning? What surrounds the disparities of Black and African American learners and their disproportionate struggle of purchasing materials? Are there opportunities for learners to voice their opinions and take ownership over their learning? So are students able to actually say that, hey, I think we should change some things up? Are they having those opportunities? We hear that sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't, but they want that. So some themes, everyone's happy with the access of materials. Majority of students, they don't have to purchase their texts and they're supplied everything through their site. So that's great. Again, appreciation of skill development, their English proficiency and achieving their own goals. Overall, overwhelming gratitude. Okay. So section D, how I'm learning. I experienced different and interesting ways of learning. So small group, lectures, activities, 81% said yes, and very, very few said no. Number 2, this is awesome. Mostly all students feel comfortable asking their teachers for help. That's great. And you look at 3, I'm able to tell my teacher what isn't working about my experience. About 86% said yes. And then 4, I get one-on-one help from my teacher, about 80%, but again, very few say no. All of these, very few say no. So that's good. Question 5, I work with my teacher to plan and complete my goals. About 78% said yes. There's some room for improvement here, but pretty good. Besides teachers, I have volunteers and other staff to help me. That's about 59%. This question, we just kind of wanted to see if a lot of sites have volunteers and staff. There's not much that we can make out of that data point. But question 7 here, a kind of catch-all. I'm learning what I need to learn. About 88 said yes, strong yes, and very, very, very few said no. So again, that's a really great thing to highlight. Students, they feel that they're fulfilled with what their experience is in ABE. They're very pleased. And yes, that 95% of learners that said yes to being comfortable to asking their teachers for help, that's awesome. But then you look back, there was a slightly lower number of students who are comfortable telling their teachers what isn't working. So again, that overwhelming positive feedback, there's still some of those small kind of things that we can be looking at to improve. Again, there's no significant racial ethnic disparities present. Wonderings, do learners have ownership of their goals and how they will achieve them? So I know that some learners, they do say that they have a lot of ownership in how they're learning, and some would like more. So we think about with these learning experiences and challenges, our students having the opportunities for that feedback to give their thoughts on how they're learning to improve it. Students are very happy with their interaction with their classmates and their teachers. That's all great. Overall, the learning environment within the classroom is really awesome. Check the chat.
Nothing new in the chat box, Addie, and
Okay.
C
See,
has been responding to
ah,
some
that's
of the
awesome.
comments as well.
Thanks, C. So section E, got couple more things to get through. This is about relating to their ABE staff and classmates. We wanted to see if there was any tensions within the classroom, kind of see what that environment was like. And it's really positive. My teachers treat me fairly. 93% said yes. Small percent said no, but that 93%, that's great. My teachers are from different backgrounds and cultures. About 60% said yes. And again, I think this kind of depends on who's answering the question. It may be perceived differently. We don't know. Number 3, my teachers know I can learn. This is awesome. You can barely see that little sliver of no. That was probably just like one person, but about 93% say their teachers know they can learn. And that's really important because if students feel fully supported by their teachers, they're going to be able to achieve much more. Now, we want to have a few questions just to write out, ask if you've ever been treated unfairly. And we were very pleased with these responses. We wanted to have you kind of see these strange options for the questions. This is what we came up with our consultant students might perceive these responses differently. So we just want to have some free will in how they answered them. But about 90% have never had any sort of disrespect, anything like that. Very, very few people said yes, kind of, or sometimes. And then when they followed up with these, they were very small, one-off situations that, nothing significant enough to note, I could say, I guess. But we did want to ask then, do they know where to go if they are treated unfairly or if something does happen to them? And just about 60% said yes. So there's still a lot of maybe awareness to be made about how we can protect students and their rights and making sure that they do have the tools they need if something like this happens. Again, the environment with their classmates, basically there's been very, very little instances of being treated with disrespect or being treated unfairly. So that's really great news. Noticing learners feel safe and respected amongst their staff and their classmates. Very rare situations of mistreatment. There were no disparities. But how can we make learners aware of their rights and protections if they experience discrimination or mistreatment? How can we equip learners with the tools to advocate for themselves? We found that with our adult learner advisory group, we started to train them on some diversity topics and things like microaggressions. We went into discrimination more, and we kind of gave them some tools to how to advocate for themselves. And once we taught them some of these terms and some of these like some of these things, they started realizing, oh, I'm experiencing microaggressions. That's what that is. So our students equipped to advocate for themselves. This is something that we can think of in terms to how the classroom setting looks like. Overall, lots of positivity again, respect and professionalism, very few individual concerns. There wasn't much of a widespread issue that we could pinpoint. So the strong parts of this survey were starting their ABE journey, how they're learning and relating to their ABE staff and classmates. But the weaker sections are supporting their ABE journey. How is it being supported with those resources and accommodations? And then section C, what I'm learning, the content, and if it actually is helping them take steps forward in their career and utilizing those life skills. That's where we saw the biggest problem spots were in the survey. But again, it's hard to even say the word problem when looking at this survey because of that positivity. But there's just those little things that are areas for growth that we think we can put more attention towards. And it kind of, this survey and this data is kind of giving us something as a base to build on. And that's what we're hoping to do in this next round of the grant. So again, that appreciation for the program and all the support, they really are just so grateful for their personal growth and their growth and their confidence. The overall positive experience. They feel that the ABE community is supportive in their educational needs and their mental health needs. Lots of positivity in this survey. When we, in the final section of the survey, we asked for any other feedback that they might have. And we did have a lot of students saying that they want more opportunities. They said, a couple said, we want more surveys. We want more opportunities to share about our experience because they want to take ownership of this. They are aware of what they need and they want to have more control in what they're learning to, I think, improve this experience for themselves and for their educators and administrators within their programs. So that was a kind of a shortened version of our findings. These will be shared on our Southwest Adult Basic Education website in full. Right now, we have a page there with our administrator and our educator survey results. So if you go to southwestadultbasiceducation.com or .org, whatever it is, you can see the racial equity grant tab on the top, and that's where we will be posting all of our findings in full. So you will be able to see those previous two reports. You'll be able to see once I have the learner one uploaded on there, it'll have more than what I just showed you. This is a quicker version, but that'll all be there. Another thing I wanted to talk about is, so what's next? We have our focus groups that we're going to be doing. We'll be working with a consultant to facilitate these focus groups to dig into this data more. And I think a couple sections we'll be looking at more will be resources and accommodations, and that section C, what I'm learning. And that's kind of what we're going to build these focus groups on. And then, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to be having our racial equity community of practice. And we are looking for awesome people like everyone who joined this Zoom session to learn about our equity efforts. We want people like you, to join. So if you are interested, oh boy, I'll share this link. I'm going to share it in the chat for you. That'll take you to the application. We are looking for some more people, and the application deadline is next Friday. So if you are interested in taking kind of some more control in this equity work in adult basic education, we would love to have you. We have 4 meeting dates set right now. We'll be meeting for a total of 24 hours, so it is quite a bit of commitment, but it's very important. So we're looking for really go-getting kind of people to push this work forward. There will be a stipend available for your time. And this is going to be a really big step for adult education. So if anyone has any questions about that, go ahead and drop them in the chat.
So Addie, there are some questions in here, or comments.
Hmm?
One, by a few people about lack of internet access or devices for many students. Um, wondering if comment about students not
Mm.
wanting or can't buy materials, so did it correlate to specific programs is the question.
Yeah, we didn't ask those specifics, so we do not have the answer to that. But that could have something to do with some of those disparities then, huh?
And then, do we know what percentage of surveys was from GED as opposed to ESL students?
No, we do not.
Okay.
Mm.
C's answering a lot of these, so I don't think we
So,
have to bring them
yeah,
up.
I'm seeing some questions about like the language accessibility and that. We did offer, we told, we let it be an option that if teachers or if they had a helper in the classroom, someone, if they wanted to work on these surveys together in a group, and we know we had a couple groups who a volunteer read the survey out loud and translated it into the students' native language. They had a group of students together and they worked on it as a group to kind of overcome that language barrier. I know there were a few different cases on that. That was totally okay. Whatever we could do to have more students take the survey, we encouraged that. Students even working together. So we really acknowledge the barrier of language and how we wish there could have been more for us to do with that. And that's what these focus groups are for. So now with these focus groups, we're going to make sure to have translators to make sure we capture everyone's voice fairly.
There's a comment on here about it. A training would be great to teach us how to do the survey, such as the ones that you have done, which is awesome, by the way. So for a
Yeah.
few people wondering about how they could use a survey that similar to what you had did for their own programs and their own students.
Yeah, and that can be something that we work on in our community of practice, coming up with maybe a smaller version or a more fine-tuned version that, we can correct some of our, not mistakes, but some of the things we'd want to change, kind of make a follow-up survey that can be applied to all these local sites. That's an awesome idea. Thank you to whoever said
That's great.
that.
Yes. That I
And
think
yeah, this is just a learning process. So this is just the start in our racial equity work, and it's gotten us here. We've figured quite a few things out and how to move forward, and it's just a learning situation for everybody involved. So the more information, the more voices that can be heard, the better. Anybody else have any other questions about the survey? Here's our emails. You can feel free to email me about any questions about the data, any follow-up, or if you are doing anything at your site in regards to racial equity, I would love to talk to you about some initiatives you're taking. I'm very open to that.
lots of thank yous.
Yeah, thanks, C, for taking control of that chat. Well, thank you too, Wendy.
I think C did a better job than me.
She has more answers than you, I think. Well, thank you, everyone. I'm very happy that you are all able to join us today, and look out for more racial equity updates in the future.